Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks very much for asking. How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm good. Apart from like microphones and studio being annoying, one of those mornings, but I'm okay.
Listen, it was really lovely, and I hope you don't mind me saying that, of watching this film next to you. It was just really lovely to to know how much work and you went into this film to kind of get the chance to watch it, and just kind of say congratulations as well coming out of it, because it's such a beautiful accompaniment to this story that I knew nothing about, which I feel embarrassed to say.
I don't think anyone did. I mean, I think that was the shocking thing when we all got together and all of the filmmakers. Nobody knew the story, so it was just which is crazy considering her accomplishments and what it meant for women's sport, and you know how much she really changed things for women. But her name's just somehow been forgotten over time. So I think it's yeah, I think it's really common. I don't think anyone knows the story.
When you, I guess, even kind of before you know that you have that you're working on it, is there an element of kind of research for you in terms of when you're having those initial I imagine particularly because this is a Jerry Bruckheimer production, in terms of that experience that he has with working with composers. But when you're kind of even just stepping into the ring of that world of kind of, you know, putting together your thoughts and ideas about the sound of this film, the sound of her, and what her story warrants, I guess, in terms of music.
Yeah, and there's a great book called Young Women in the Sea that the screenplay is based on. So that was my starting point, was just to read that book and to find some to try and kind of get under the skin of it a bit and to try and understand Trudy and her story a bit more. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's only, I guess it's so much of those early conversations and those kind of early meetings and stuff. You're just really going off an instinct, because
Mm.
it's unusual that everybody really knows exactly what they want. Usually that it's still quite open and there's discussions to be had and there's exploration. So it's finding that balance of going in and being like, this is how I feel and this is how I think it should sound, and having an idea and having concepts, but also still remaining really open to the filmmakers and to their vision. So I think I'm always trying to toe that line of wanting to of keep my you know everything open, but
Yeah.
also like responding to something and having those instincts. And I think the screenplay was so brilliant and like so emotional, that I did have quite a strong sense of what I imagined the film would sound like.
And then I guess there's loads of different parts for you then to, you've got that kind of framework of it, but then there are all these different things that are part of this film, whether it be themes, relationships, the time period, the tone of it, the sea, the water, all that kind of stuff. You've got, because I think that they've written a really great tonal film as well, in terms of it's really emotional, it's really funny at places as well. And you kind of get really angry at places about certain things, about where women were kind of kept in that time period, 100 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, is that kind of, do you use all of that as kind of fuel, I guess, in terms of what you want the music to say and how the music's going to accompany those different elements of the film?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, definitely. And I think that I just wanted to do right by her. I just was like, I
Yeah.
wanted to feel like I was telling her story in the way that she deserved. And I think one of the things that we talked about a lot when we were spotting it and was just like finding the strength and finding her power, and like being like, she's not like, you know, the other women. She's got
Mm.
this incredible um, sense of self, and this kind of limitless imagination of what she's capable of. And so I think it was just trying not to like fall into too many things of well, there was firstly there's the period, and I think
Mm.
very quickly we decided that we weren't going to be true to the period and that we were going to use contemporary sounds and contemporary ideas, because that just didn't feel right for the character to be restricted by that time period, because she was so modern and she was so boundary pushing, so it was like, well, the music should reflect that. It should feel really contemporary. We should be using whatever we want that's just going to serve her and serve her character. So that was really nice and took away a lot of kind of restriction. And yeah, it was just about finding, like, I think finding the themes was really important. And I think that Jerry, if you see his films, his scores have incredible melodies, incredible themes. He really loves melody. So it was kind of finding those themes, and the relationship that they had with her, and there was her kind of hero power, athlete theme, and then there was her personal relationship, sister, family theme, and it was just finding all these facets of her personality and giving them a really strong character, and a really clear identity. And I think once we kind of had all those themes and those threads, I felt like we had like this full 360 idea of who she was.
Did Daisy's, I mean, it's such a brilliant time for Daisy as well. I watched her other film, Sometimes I Think About Dying, last week, and to have this and that kind of, within a kind of month of each other is just a wonderful kind of reminder of people of the kind of the breadth of her ability as an actor. And I think she's fantastic in this. And it's so great to kind of just see her kind of flourish, and just one of those films, I think, where you watch the performance and you can't visualize anybody else. It's kind of like this was made for her kind of thing. This is definitely kind of, she kind of just embodies this character, Trudy. And did her performance influence much, in terms of when you were writing and going back to do things, or whatever? Was that kind of part of the inspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I can't imagine anybody else playing that part. And I think she just did such an incredible job. And I think there was just such an honesty to her performance that I really responded to. I felt like she wasn't doing it, she wasn't being tricksy. She wasn't doing, it just felt like so honest. And there was like a simplicity to it and a directness that I really, really liked. And I just felt, I felt like I understood Trudy, through her portrayal, and kind of having that, just that real direct, I don't want to say blunt, but I think she was unusual as a person, and she had a kind of singularness to her, and I think she found it hard to kind of relate in the world in the way that most people do. And I think, dare I hate saying, on the spectrum or whatever, but, I think in these times that's, she would have been, or she definitely, but I love the way she's just so, you just kind of love her from the beginning, and you're just rooting for her, and she plays her with such emotion and just such depth, and just like real kind of honesty is how I really, was the word that kept coming to me, was just how honest it was. And she's
I think
vulnerable as well, as much as she's strong and she's impressive in her strength, she's also like, she's childlike and she's vulnerable and she's innocent. She's got this real wide-eyed kind of, and that thing that I guess children have that we all lose, which is like, why not? Why can't I do that? Like, why wouldn't I? Like, this real innocence. Yeah.
And I think that the way that you immediately kind of just are with her in this film makes you then react so kind of strongly when there are certain situations that she's faced with, like the Christopher Eccleston character. You're literally like, oh my God, it's like the anger that you feel about that. And then Stephen Graham's character, you're kind of like, oh, he's just hilarious. And you're like, oh my God, she's got a great ally here. She's got someone who's just kind of, got her back and just wants her to do well, sort of thing as well. And I think that that's down to that performance, and how you immediately as an audience member are kind of like you're on her side, and so you're feeling almost everything that she's going through in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And she does that. She's got a great balance of, she's so at the, there's these characters who are kind of controlling her destiny, I suppose, and there are these kind of obstacles and these obstructions on her path,
Mm.
and she's got that great balance of, with, especially with Wolf, with the Christopher Eccleston character, of, she's kind of powerless, and she's in no position of influence, but she's still, there's a knowing, she knows, you can't kind of trick her or pull the wool over her eyes. Like, she's
Yeah,
smart, and she's kind of not yielding to him, and she's not playing his game, which is tough when, she was young. She was really, really young. She was really inexperienced. She was really kind of, you know, uh, vulnerable, and actually she just really, I love that sense of, like, she's totally got his number, and she knows exactly what he's doing.
yeah.
She's really smart.
It's because there's so many things with regards to music in terms of the journey that she's going on, and particularly that kind of, trying to achieve that goal that she has of swimming the channel and stuff, and the number of times that she does it, or attempts to do it, sort of thing, that we see in the film anyway, and the music's job and role within that, and within those two examples within the film, and how they're different, and how the music kind of does slightly different things in terms of, because of, as we're watching the film, we don't necessarily know the outcome of that first attempt, sort of thing, but it's kind
Yeah,
of, the music can't tell us before things happen. Do you know what I mean? So the music's got to be riding the wave, sorry for the analogy, but of that kind of like experience. Do you know what I mean? So it's a huge, how much music and what it's doing, but also what it's alongside in this film as well.
yeah. I think it was about pacing ourselves. And I mean, again, there's so many, I had to keep, we always had like a jar where I put money in every time I'd say, I'm a bit out of my depth, or I'm feeling like swept away. We would just pour water and sea puns. It's just constant. So it was just, I couldn't help it. But I think, like you say, it was riding that wave, and it was pacing it. It was just going, okay, so obviously we know that what happens, and that first attempt isn't successful, but you can't, the audience can't know that. So it has to feel
Mm.
thrilling. It has to feel exciting. It has to still feel heroic. But I guess in my mind, I still always knew, okay, well, we're in that gear. And then I know that you had to save like a good 20% kind of headroom at the top, where you could just then push it and explode for the end. So it was kind of making sure you always had that space above, and you never went above the threshold until, and for me, the real turning point in the film is kind of where I feel like it's the beginning of the final act, is when she starts her second swim. And that for me
Mm.
is when the music like really cranks up to another level, and when we're in another zone with musically, and we kind of stay in that zone until the end of the film.
Was there a kind of an unlocking moment for you with regards to this, in terms of a specific piece or a specific theme that was kind of like, okay, yeah, in terms of where what it kind of unlocked in terms of where the rest of the score would go?
Yeah, there really was. And I think I was, writing away and trying all these different themes, and nothing was really working, and nothing was really resonating with anybody. And it just, and I was struggling to find the theme, to be honest. And I think that, I think the first kind of in-person meeting that I had, where everybody was in the same room, um, it was just, well, there was one thing that I was playing all these themes, and then Jerry just turned around and said, "All the notes go down." Like, and I was like, and I realized that every theme I write, the notes go down. And I was like, oh my God, I know it's something I wasn't aware of. And then I kind of looked through my list of themes to play, and I was like, they all go down. Like, I can't play these. So then I was like, oh my God. So that was kind of one thing, that I had to think about. And then another thing was just, you know, again, Jerry was just very like, this is a film about an athlete, and this is a sports movie, you know, and I think the music that I was writing was for a different kind of film that was about, you know, that I, you know, and I kept trying to write this really beautiful music for this beautiful film that's shot so beautifully, and the water and the sea, and I was kind of getting swept up in this idea of, you know, right, that it had to be beautiful, you know, and it had to be epic and beautiful and sweeping and all this stuff. And then Jerry was just like, it's a sports movie and she's an athlete and she needs like a really strong theme. And I think when I realized that, and that it just changed everything, and I started writing in a completely different way, and realizing that actually the film could really take it, and the film could really take that kind of, you know, more just bigger, more bombastic music, and it didn't have to be beautiful. Actually, it needed to be just really strong, and it needed to be exciting, and it needed to feel propulsive, and it needed to feel, you know, and somehow try and convey just how crazy what she did is, and how strong she was. And you know, it was always like, she needs a kick-ass theme, and that was the thing. It was like, she needs that, like something that's gonna, and yeah. So once I wrote that, and once I started writing more in that vein, it worked much better. And then I think we still have a lot of emotion, and I think the sisters theme with her and Meg, Trudy and Meg, who are so close, and she's her hero, and she's the person who drives her and inspires her. So that, I feel like that theme is really emotional and really, you know, yeah, and then there's a lot, you know, it was lots of different things, I suppose. And I think that sister theme was really important. And once that was done, it was that was kind of the core of the film. And then it was finding music that was going to make the racing and the swimming feel exciting and feel like, you know, because there's a lot of swimming as well. So it was just trying to find ways of making that feel exciting. And how do you make sure it's not repetitive, and how do you tell the story of a race, and who's winning and who's losing and who's, you know, so it was just all of that kind of narrative stuff as well was really important.
It's also that those kind of moments, even like, you know, at the start where she's on kind of coal duty, you know, by the pool sort of thing, and that kind of journey of her, and so where there's not really any dialogue from her really, but the kind of music's almost a little glimpse of the internalization of kind of where she is, and she's still kind of, you know, she's like, this is all part of the journey, this is all part of the training kind of thing, almost in a way, and that optimism, I guess. And it's funny, when you were saying about Jerry saying about the notes going down, I guess that's what notes going up, I guess, is an optimism thing, maybe. I don't know. Was that kind of part of it?
Yeah, and I think it's a triumph, isn't it? It's triumph. It's triumph over adversity, and I think you need it to go up. And interestingly, that furnace scene where she's in the pool, and, you know, she's not even allowed in the pool because she's not good enough, and you know, she's filling the furnace. So that piece of music is the same piece of music that you hear. It's the first time you kind of hear her theme, but it's without the melody. So it's just all the fundamentals of the theme. And then it's when she does her final swim and she reaches the beach, it's essentially that piece again, but in its full, you know, with everything in it. So I kind of love there was that bookmark of like, that's her first triumph, is, you know, when she actually makes it into the pool, because she's not even allowed to swim initially.
Yeah. Also knowing how to start the film, because the piece of music that we have, you know, at the start of the film, which has got voices in it as well, which I think is just such a lovely kind of opening to the film, because it doesn't tell you too much. You know, sometimes kind of that opening piece of music kind of almost a bit like reading a kind of, you know, when it's like, oh, it's a rom-com and it's this and it's that, almost like the genres of the film. So sometimes it can tell you too much, sort of thing. But I just thought, I just found it really, it was almost like a kind of, oh, come this way kind of thing, rather than it being kind of going, this is what this is. And I really was interested to kind of hear about, I guess that's quite a big, I mean, it's all a big part of the job sort of thing, but kind of knowing that first piece that people are going to hear that's with picture.
Yeah, and I think, there were actually lots of versions of that, and I think the first version was much like, here we are, and kind of laying out my stall and being like, this is the melody and this is the thing and this is, and it just over time got stripped back and stripped back and stripped back, and I think it got more and more restrained, and I think, and I really love that it is that, because like you say, it's just a tiny flavor of what's to come. And actually the editor did something really lovely where she got the theme, just the melody, that's played later on the piano, just really high up on the piano. And so we had the opening used to have her kind of theme, but then we just ended it being much more simple. But then the next shot of her, when you first see her as a child, there's just the piano playing the theme. And it's just so lovely, and then you hear the same thing at the very end, on the real Trudy. So it's like on the footage of her, the archive footage. It was such a lovely touch from the editor.
Oh wow!
Really, just, you wouldn't even know it unless you knew it. Do you know what I mean? But it's just
Yeah.
Thing that she did, and it's really subtle and gorgeous.
And I love how we're kind of really introduced quite quickly to that, I guess, their song, when she's got the ukulele and she's sort of singing the song that becomes a real kind of part of it's part of their history. It's part of their, do you know what I mean? It's such a lovely little kind of thing as well, sort of thing. I don't even know what the song's called, even.
I know. I just gone. My mind's just blank. Ain't got no.
I
What
did
is
write it down. My really bad writing whilst I'm watching the film.
Fun. Ain't we got fun?
Yeah, ain't we got fun? That's it. Yeah.
It's lovely.
It's such a lovely little thing, and it's kind of like, was that? I don't know. It's like, was that? Because it's a true story, so you're always kind of going, did that? Was that really kind of part of their? Was it something that they did, sort of thing as well? Because you kind of, it just feels really real.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder.
Red jellyfish!
What can we do?
Nothing, she swims through.
Come on, Trudy.
I want to ask about the jellyfish, because I was like literally squirming in my seat at that scene.
Yeah. It's horrible, isn't it? It's and actually I've really seen it because the special effects weren't finished when I finished, so I'd always just got so used to seeing it with this like one half finished jellyfish, and then all just white blobs, and I was like, I hadn't actually ever seen the full impact of the jellyfish until the screening that I went to with you, and it's just horrific. I mean, it's horrible. It's so brutal, but
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine. I mean, and then she carries on and keeps swimming. I mean, I would be in shock for like a month after that.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like just unbelievable how how much, it's like it's 100 years ago, which means, is a long time ago, but then it doesn't feel like that long ago in terms of like what she was kind of faced with as well. The other bit that I just kind of made a note on was her dad Q, in terms of when he's on the boat. I think that's the bit that I was talking about, because that in itself is a kind of a journey in terms of their relationship, his kind of opinion on women and girls and all that kind of thing as well, and his kind of belief in her, and that was a really lovely cue as well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a really lovely story, thread of the story. And I feel like, at the beginning, it's his wife, it's her mother who is really pushing for the girls to learn to swim, because there's been a boat, that kind of boat that caught fire, and all of the women died. It was in like New York Harbor, and they all died because the women couldn't swim, because at the time it was just seen as unladylike to be in the water and to swim. And so when Trudy's mother saw this happen, she just was adamant that her girls would learn to swim, and she faced so much opposition from it, from her husband, from the local pool. They wouldn't let women in. There was a ladies' pool, it was separate. And it's like, it's just mad, like you say, that was only 100 years ago, which isn't that long ago, that little girls wouldn't have been allowed to learn to swim, that it was unseemly in some way, and that he starts off from that place, and then he ends up obviously being her biggest supporter, and seeing that journey is really lovely. And her mother, Trudy's mother, is just incredible, such a brilliant character.
That's the thing. The casting in the film is just absolutely brilliant. We talked about Daisy, but Kim as her dad, and Jeanette as her mum as well. That's just it's so great across the board as well. It just it's such an immersive experience, the film. And like one of those things as well, those rare things that's real family viewing, I think, as well. There's not enough of those experiences that are like, not animation, that you can all sit down as a family and watch and get something from, and learn something as well. And that's kind of one of the many things that I really loved about the film, was that it being one of those opportunities.
Me too. And I feel like that is just become such a gap. It's really hard to find something that everyone wants to watch. And, you could watch this with grandparents, you could watch it with children, like I'm going to take my girls to see it, and it's like, it's so inspirational, and it's a real uplifting, life affirming film that you can all walk away from feeling, really positive and it's true. So it's just amazing to kind of learn about her.
And you can walk away having done a Disney film and a Jenny Bruckheimer film. Woo! It's amazing. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, it was the whole thing was just an amazing experience. It really was. I loved it. I mean, it was really exciting, and just such a brilliant thing to be part of. And it was such a great, I felt like everybody involved was just so passionate about the story, that there was so much goodwill, and everyone just wanted to do their best. And I feel like we were all given the space and support to do that in a really lovely way.
Amazing. Well, you've done such a great job, Melly. It's brilliant. It's really great to celebrate it. Thanks. I look forward to the next one as well. So thank you so much. Makes me want to go swimming as well. Not quite as far, but just to
I've got my jellyfish, my horrible jellyfish sting. Look, did I show you that?
Wow.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mental.
Yeah, it's actually
not from the film, we should add, but it's like a team tattoo that everybody got from it.
And a tattoo of a jellyfish that I now have permanently.
A real. Wow. Listen, thanks for your time, lovely. It's always great to chat to you about your brilliant work, and huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.